One second, getting the screen shared here for the presentation. All right, is everyone able to see my screen? Looks on my end that it's still loading. Okay, now is it visible?
Oh yeah, go for it. We can all see it. Yeah, it's
Perfect.
visible.
Yeah, sometimes Google Meet takes a little bit to like load it. Great. All right. So this workshop is all about UI design. I'll start with a little bit of an intro. We'll have a little bit of a interactive component just to kind of have some involvement and then dive into all kinds of golden rules and principles for UI design. And then we'll also have a Q&A session at the end if any questions are outstanding beyond what we cover in this workshop. So diving right into it, I'm Amy. I am based in Seattle, where I work as a UX designer. I'm also a team builder, a mentor. In my free time, I mentor on the side. I also mentor with Iterate UX, Design Buddies, the Mentoring Club, several different platforms. And with Iterate UX, it's a design community that I'm actually building a mentorship program and platform with them there. So that's been really fun. And a little bit of background about me. Before UX, I had some long careers in the performing arts and coffee industries. So I was a competitive latte artist, cafe manager, barista trainer with Seattle Barista Academy, and was a dancer and musician as well. My bachelor's was actually in flute performance. So I've always been attracted to creative and artistic. And it was actually through the coffee industry that I first heard about UX. It was one of my customers who told me I would make a great UX designer. And at the time, I did not even know what that was. I Googled it and found my love. Everything that I loved about the coffee industry and performing arts, like crafting these experiences for people from everything from like menu accessibility. Is it clear where to come and order your coffee and pick it up? Cafe design, understanding my audience when I was performing and crafting an experience that would match their needs and goals, identifying, who those users, those customers were. All those things that I loved about crafting those experiences really translated into UX design. And so within UX design, I work full time in the e-commerce space with a company called Online Metals. This company actually got its start here in Seattle over 20 years ago. And then back in 2007, were acquired by ThyssenKrupp, which is a German-based industrial and tech conglomerate. The company has, in some ways kind of startup feels, but in others very corporate. And at this company, I lead the end-to-end design for the responsive website and the progressive web app. I manage the design system and have also provided design, architecture, and support for our third-party marketplaces. And occasionally also do visual design and print work and stuff like that outside of basic, UI and the design systems and things like this. And so with that said, I'm going to actually drop a link to a Fig Jam board that I've created. And what we're going to do is kind of set the stage here with a little whiteboarding activity to get your point of view on where you're at right now, what sort of elements of UI design you're familiar with, kind of your best practices, things that are important to you. just to kind of see where everyone is at before we dive into the principles in detail. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that link really quick and drop it in the chat here. All right. So I went ahead and dropped that link in the chat. Everyone can take a moment to get that opened up and hop over into this grid. Let's see, I shared the edit link, but it looks like it's going to manually make me assign some stuff here. So just going through and making sure everyone can have edit access. All right, I'm still manually assigning everybody. It looks like a little bit of a fig jam bug here, but okay. Looks like everyone so far has edit access. Go ahead and let me share this tab to our presentation. Yay, see all the people's happy little cursors everywhere. So here, just go ahead and feel free to pop into these sticky notes and type away at some things that are important to you, whether that's best practices, considerations, your personal golden rules, or principles that you're familiar with. Oh, I see something in the chat here. Oh, thanks, Yu-chan. Appreciate it. Sure, everyone has edit access. That's so weird that the edit link isn't sharing appropriately here. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and start a little timer and play some music while everyone's chipping in here. Aha, this is cute, the little hi that somebody wrote in here. Hello, right back to you. People still busily typing away, so I'll give you a few more minutes. Cool. Looks like momentum slowed down a bit, so I'm going to go ahead and pause the music and timer. All right. And I'm seeing good stuff already, so we'll just start jumping into this. It looks like you guys have a good understanding of a lot of these basics and principles already. I'm seeing hierarchy, responsiveness, yes, accessibility, color contrast, legibility, absolutely. Hierarchy, usability, equity, balance, yes. Usability and usefulness of the design, 100%. And a little drawing over here. I'm curious if some of you are on iPads or if you're doing this with the computer, like touchpad or mouse design skills. And emphasis, hierarchy, repetition, balance, and white space, consistency, balance, simple and intuitive use, hierarchy, less is more. Yes, yes, less is more. Absolutely. Minimalism, grid layout. Yes. Are visible and legible, intuitive, Jacob's law, definitely. Being unique doesn't mean inventing everything. Yes. Negative space, following existing conventions to an extent, Nielsen, Norman guidelines, using online resources such as Google materials. Yes, indeed. Consistency and simplicity, accessibility, grid layouts, using existing design systems to reference, maintain consistency in visual elements, helping users predict the behavior of the interface, feedback and affordance, immediate feedback, and design elements looking that they can be interacted with, definitely. Intuitive to navigate and perform actions. Yes, navigation is a huge part. And empower users by giving them control over their interactions. Yes, yes, yes. Looks like you guys all have a good understanding of the basics here. So excellent. We'll start diving right in. I'll go back to the presentation. All right. So we'll start diving in right away into where UI fits within the UX space. So UI is a subset within UX. They go kind of hand in hand. So I think, you know, a lot of times people like to look at UI as just being like visual design, but like someone had mentioned in on that FigJam board, how usability is so important. And oh, our timer just ended on the FigJam board. So usability is absolutely important. Like a lot of these UX details inform the UI, in fact. So we can see here this infographic of an iceberg. And that's kind of how we see UX and UI together. What's under the surface that you might not see so much is the UX part. This would be a lot of the psychology, the usability testing, strategy, research, the information architecture, things like this. And then what we see, what is visible, what users are interacting with, that's the UI, which this hackathon is really focused on. So this is going to be all about color, typography, the visual design, icons, graphics, all of that touch and feel and what we can see. And so then we'll start here with the golden rules of UI design and then hit on the principles, which you'll find that the principles are kind of subsets of these golden rules. So the golden rules is kind of from a UX perspective a bit, which is one, keeping users front and center, that user experience being first, and all those UI considerations will be aligned to this. And then two, aim for simplicity. Someone had mentioned this in on the FigJam board there, keeping things very simple and minimal, making the user interfaces consistent. That consistency is very key. And then allowing users to navigate easily. This was also something that someone had identified on our sticky notes, providing informative feedback, which is super helpful for the users. design dialogues to result in closure, helping the users understand from in a visual kind of way um, when they are finished with something. Preventing error as much as possible, especially major errors. The having your users encounter an error that's like major usability issue, and we can really craft those experiences from a UI perspective. Allowing users ways to reverse their actions easily, and this can be related a bit to that prevent error as much as possible, but also in relation to an action that isn't an error but maybe something users want to undo. Allowing user control, that is also related to many of these things. Being able to navigate easily, that's part of user control. Being able to reverse their actions easily, that's part of user control. And then minimizing and reducing cognitive load when users are presented with so many options, or again, knowing where to look, where to go. A lot of this, navigation and simplicity, this can also feed into successfully minimizing and reducing the cognitive load. So getting into this a bit more in detail, good design is invisible. We tend to notice bad design right away whether this is like when you're driving down the street and your signs are not clear, or you felt kind of tricked with the way the road went. We notice this bad design right away when something's not a pleasant experience. But good design, we kind of just don't notice it until like something bad happens. If we do notice good design, it's because something just blows us out of the way that is so much better than everything else we experience. Um, and then aiming for simplicity. Someone also mentioned this on our sticky notes. Less is more. Absolutely. With visual design, sometimes it can be tempting to pull out all the bells and whistles and make something so fancy, and sometimes that can be really overwhelming and actually contribute to an overwhelming amount of cognitive load and just distraction, and also even impede navigation if there's just too much to look at. Making user faces consistent, and I'll pop over here to an example. This is from Amaze, actually. Here on the top, we can see a consistent page design, where from page 1, 2, and 3, we're seeing, the main navigation, the other navigation, arrows, the main body. Everything has a really consistent and progressive look and feel. Where here on the bottom row, we see an inconsistent page design, where page 1 might have, this sort of pattern that we see up in the top row. But then page 2 suddenly has these up and down arrows up near the top header and other navigation on the right-hand side. And then page 3, the navigation changes again and the CTA is over on the right. This can, lead to confusion and just extra time for your users to have to figure out where things are located. And that also fits into, familiar patterns. When the users are typically look for like a close button in the right hand upper corner, you don't expect it to be on the left hand side or down at the bottom, or in different places according to the page that you're on. Same with your CTA buttons. Follow Leveraging and following those familiar patterns can really help with the consistency, and then sticking with that pattern within your design. And then we'll get into allowing users to navigate easily, especially via shortcuts. And with shortcuts, we love them. This is a little screenshot actually from Figma. We love Command C, Command V, or if you're on a PC, Control C, Control V, to copy and paste. And guess what? Our users love shortcuts too. So here's some examples of some good shortcuts and navigation. This is the Target website. Up here, you can see right away in this top navigation, easy to locate the categories, deals, new and featured, pickup and delivery, some of those like maybe primary actions that a user might want to do. They can also see these shortcuts for the zip code, their location, if they want to like pick up in store or find something nearby to them. The search bar, being able to easily find that and reference it. These shortcuts to sign in. And then even if they just want to bypass going into categories, easily being able to right away just go into a women's section, babies and kids or men's, something like this. And then this is another example of some different types of shortcuts from Best Buy's website. So here we have, the menu that can open up an entire menu of navigation. Then also some different types of breadcrumbs. And that allows users to easily be able to navigate via shortcuts throughout their experience. Like here, I have drilled down into the computers and tablets from the menu, and then specifically into tablets, where then it opens up another menu for Apple's iPad, and I can look here and see even if I want to go to like Mac, iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, I can easily access all of this stuff from here. So those shortcuts really help with navigation. And then we have providing informative feedback in the UI. And this is an example from Airbnb's website, specifically related to signing up for an Airbnb account. And I really love how they handle their password feedback, because this is a sort of situation where if you're signing up and you don't know all the details, it's very frustrating and annoying as a user if I have to, you know, test and try something and then it's unsuccessful. I just want to know right away what all those requirements are. So as I have started typing here, I can see right away what my password strength is, which is marked as weak. But then I see a green check mark for can't contain your name or email address. So that's good. And then at least 8 characters. So I haven't hit the 8 characters yet. Contains a number or symbol. Also haven't achieved that yet. And it's really helpful to get this feedback and see these turn green and go from an X icon to a check icon. That's very helpful for that user experience. And that's all UI design right there. And then design your dialogues to result in closure. So for this golden rule, these are 2 different examples. So this is actually from my company's mobile web responsive website. This is like an order confirmation page, so the user can see when they've placed an order. They get that closure that like, thank you, your order has been placed. Having that ability to like print, return shopping, that all relates to like user control. And then also like being able to see all the details of their order summary, what they got, any further instructions or information needed from here. And then this is an example from Amazon, even further on in the process, where not only is the order confirmed, but this is a confirmation of the delivery. And then I can see, from this really nice design from a user control perspective as well. I can leave feedback about my delivery. I can track my package. That's all user control. That's really nice. And it's very assuring to see that, especially when you've paid money for something, that your order is confirmed, your order is delivered. It's good assurance for the customer. And then preventing error as much as possible. So this is from one of Airbnb's modals, and this is for a rental, check in and check out, and I can see this calendar. And the way that the error is prevented from here is that I can only select dates which are available, and then you can see this disabled state with a lighter gray color and a strike through, which will not allow me to select a date that's already taken. So you prevent major error on the user's end by this way. It would not be pleasant to book and then find out, oh, it's already been booked after the fact. And then this is another example from Maze of preventing error by requiring a valid email address. So here you can see I typed amy#mail.com, and it provides me that feedback that this isn't valid. It won't let me use it. And that prevents, setting up an account with an email that doesn't exist, for example. And then allowing users ways to reverse their actions easily. Again, kind of a subset of user control, if you will. This is an example of Walmart. And some of the areas where I can reverse is, of course, a back button, right? I can go back and add something to the cart, for example. Now, these checkboxes are another opportunity to reverse. If I've checked that I want this 4-year plan and then I decide I don't want to, I can also uncheck this and undo that. And then additionally, I can undo my quantity. I could choose more, choose less. I can also totally remove this from my cart, which is really helpful. So I really get a lot of user control from Walmart's cart here, and that's super helpful. Just from one space, I'm able to have so much control and change so many things. And this is an example from my company of some user control within checkout. So here with the edit buttons, for example, within checkout, I can go to those specific sections and change what might be. Maybe I look at this in review and I'm like, wait, that's not the shipping address that I want to send this to, or no, that's not the payment method I want. And so that allows me to have a lot of control over changing that information or reversing an action even after I have completed something. This is an example of user control. So this is a pop-up related to making a choice to modify a quoted cart. And so here, there's information here. If you choose to continue modifying your order, you will lose the quoted pricing. And the control it gives the user is that they can either continue modifying the cart, knowing that this is going to happen, or no, return to cart without any modifications, and can also close this pop-up. So this provides user control to understand what's going to happen and be able to make the choices that they want to make. And all this communicated from a UI perspective, with text, with color hierarchy, with buttons, icons, this warning icon up at the top, all helps to inform the user. And then for reducing cognitive load, another Airbnb example here where I try to favorite or save an item on Airbnb without being signed in. Right away, the browser is recognizing me and recognizing that I potentially have signed in before with an account. So it is reducing some of that load of needing to manually sign in by remembering me and allowing me to continue with Google, and then also seeing a great example of user control here. If it's not me, I can use another account, sign in with a different account. And then also here, we can see from this company, Ryerson, this is their checkout section. So they can see this form. This is a good example of some progressive disclosure, as well as keeping things more simple. So up here at the top, I can see where I'm at in this process of checkout, which is really helpful. And then also, allows for not too much information just all in one endless scrolling page. So it allows this cognitive load to be less overwhelming as a user, where I can just focus, okay, this is shipping. So I'm entering my shipping information, and then I can see that preview that the next section is billing. I can also see from that golden rule perspective of preventing user error that I cannot continue on to this next section until I finish the previous section. And then this is just a little screenshot of some different ways you might handle some of this like progressive disclosure, which can really help to reduce some of that cognitive load and keeping things more simple and easy to digest for your users. And then we'll get a bit into there's many UI design principles. Um, Literally so many different ones. Some are larger and more overarching, others can be a subset. So don't worry if you don't see something you consider to be a really important principle listed here. It's likely that it's a subset of one of these or something completely different altogether. So we have accessibility, clarity, familiarity, user control, visual hierarchy, grids and alignment, movement, and flexibility. And we'll get into each of these. Oops. All right, so with accessibility, I like to focus on this first because designing for accessibility really benefits all users. I feel like many times within design, it's kind of an afterthought where people design and then they're like, oh yeah, stuff's not very accessible. Maybe we should make it accessible. Um, while that's a reality for many companies that have been around for a long time and maybe haven't been as aware about the importance of accessibility, if you have the benefit to work on a project or for a company from the ground up, from this very start, you're able to incorporate accessibility as something that is important from the very beginning. And designing with accessibility in mind is not just going to help those with disabilities, but it's literally benefits everyone. Some recommendations I have are to use the WebAIM color contrast checker, which is really helpful for seeing some of those standards. And it will be really important if you're working on like government projects, for example, or some very enterprise level products. Accessibility is absolutely a must. Some of these companies, they can get sued if things are not accessible. So really designing with that accessibility in mind from the beginning is absolutely essential, especially for some very specific industries and companies. I like using Figma plugins like Able or Contrast. Those are two of my favorite plugins to check just within my designs even and not having to go to an external website to check those text and background colors, my text size, the weight, and be able to determine if it meets those AA or AAA standards. And then familiarize yourself with the WCAG guidelines. Having that background knowledge of like knowing what text size is necessary for good accessibility on mobile and what size touch targets that you need for your icons, where they need to be located on the screens, what's in the thumb zone, all those things that can make your designs more accessible for people is great. These are some screenshots. The one on the left is the WebAIM contrast checker. And so here you can see you can type in the foreground and the background, and then you can see the contrast ratio and if it's a pass or a fail for different size text. And then this is a screenshot of one of those plugins. This one is Able. And so you'll select on Figma your different colors. So something could be like the foreground or the background. Maybe it's the background of the button and then the text of the button. And then here I specifically chose something that would show where for large text, it's a pass for AA standards. Here I can see my contrast ratio, which is on the lower side. And then for small text, it's a fail. And then they also give a preview and some, you're able to see like what that would look like. And they give all those information of 14-point bold text is large text, so I can see what will pass for AA. I can see that none of this is accessible for AAA standards. And then 8-point text is large text for regular that's not bold. And then we have clarity. Some questions to ask yourself in respect to clarity as you're designing is your navigation intuitive? Are your users directed and encouraged to move from one page to the next with ease? Is this clear to them? Another form of navigation is, buttons, CTAs. Are those buttons highly visible? Do they prompt and incentivize your users to click on them? And is the purpose of each element clear and easy to understand? And this can be like extremely comprehensive from, that element. Does that mean it's your text? The copywriting, is this clear to understand? Are your icons clear? Not just in terms of like sharpness and contrast, but do they represent something that makes sense to your users? Familiarity, which we briefly touched on, but the best interfaces are the ones that are familiar for users. And we have Jacob's law that states that users spend most of their time on other sites. And that means that users prefer your site to work the same way as all the other sites they already know. And this is so essential. When I'm doing competitive benchmarking, I'll look at what competitors are doing, but I also like to do what we call lighthouses, which is comparing similar situations from some of those familiar companies that everyone shops at. Like, for example, if you're handling like a landing page or checkout or a blog or something like that, how are some of these big companies handling it that people shop at all the time, like Amazon? How many people shop on Amazon and are so familiar with the desktop look, with the mobile app? And if they're constantly seeing these patterns of, they know where to go to find a hamburger menu, where the search bar is, interactions, the way things behave, if you're leveraging those same patterns in your designs, that's going to make it easier for them and even reduce some of that cognitive load, since they won't have to be learning something new. They're intuitively going where they already expect something to be. And related to that, do you automatically look for the menu or search bar at the top of the homepage of a new website? Why is that? Probably because you've encountered that on literally so many different websites that you already shop at. Some of those benefits of familiarity is that it increases user retention. So the more familiar the user is with your interface and the more easily that they can use your website or app, the more they'll come back to it. And that is gold for a business. It's easier for UI designers to incorporate those tried and tested interface design solutions than to create new ones from scratch. And so like some of those patterns might be like drop downs, pop-ups, tooltips, some of the accordions, some of those patterns that are already so established and familiar that they'll already be in the system or be something that UI designers and developers are familiar with and be able to leverage easily. And it also, from the user side, it reduces that learning curve. So the less time that users have to spend understanding how your interface works, the faster they can start using your product. And this also reduces the chance of your user just getting frustrated and giving up because of this unfamiliar, very steep learning curve, and then choosing to go shop at a different website. These are some examples here of these familiar patterns. So this is from Sprig. I don't know if any of you guys use Sprig, but it's an awesome prototype testing tool. So here I can see the top navigation where I expect a lot of this stuff to be right away. I'm like, oh yeah, it's easy to find pricing. It's easy to find products and use cases, like all those things I might wonder. The CTAs are super clear and where I would expect that to be on a landing page above the fold. I can also see that, this one is bolder and pops out more, get started free. And then the secondary CTA, a little less commanding of attention to book a demo. I also see some informative feedback here. 14-day free trial, no credit card required. That's like really helpful for me to understand from a clarity perspective of like, what does get started free mean? It provides that assurance. And then also there's this pop-up that appeared here where it incentivizes me to schedule a demo, join a group demo, and then I can also see the privacy policy. It's clear where to sign in. And then I also see that familiar pattern and consistency where that get started free is that same style button up here in the top menu that I'm seeing down here. Then we have user control. So placing users in control of the interface, giving them options to go back a step. And I know we already covered some of this with like Walmart's um, cart in our golden rules here, but just reiterating that when users feel they've made a mistake or they simply change their mind and want to undo this, this is closely related to Ben Schneiderman's golden UI design rule, which is supporting the internal locus of control and allowing users to reverse their actions easily. Some tips for user control is that when you're creating forms, allow users to click the back button to return to the page that they were last on. Don't take them back to the home page or make them restart the form. That gives users a good experience with user control. And when you're using overlays or pop-ups on your website, make sure that exit button is clear so users don't have to click the back button on the browser or go back 2 steps instead of just closing the overlay. I don't know if you guys have ever been on Facebook and like opened up an article where they have those impossible pop-ups where you can't even figure out how to control it, and literally all you can do is like close the app or go back because you can't find that exit button. That directly ties into how UI impacts the usability. This is an example of a great pop-up from Wayfair. So here with that user control, not only do I have the choice of like controlling my color, my size, and my quantity, I can save it, add to cart, but also if I need to close this pop-up, I can easily find that exit button at the top, or I can click and having such a large space outside the pop-up to close it. And that gives me a lot of assurance having this amount of control. Then we have visual hierarchy, which we've got color and contrast, we've got size, fonts, and white space. This is an image of color contrast or color wheel with the psychology of colors. And there's there's so much, and you can teach a whole workshop just about color psychology. But you'll notice, like, for example, banking apps. Do you notice a lot of times they use blue as a color? If you look at like the psychology of blue, success, trust, power, security, confidence, purpose. Also, some of those social media apps where this would be really important, blue is used. Think of like LinkedIn, think of Twitter before it was X, think of Facebook. The verified badges, how that is used. That's just one small example. I'll definitely be sharing these slides so you can nerd out into this in great detail. But when you're designing UI and choosing branding colors, choosing how you're what colors would you apply to get a specific result out of something, depending on what the content is. That color psychology will really play into that. This is an example of AB Tasty handling their landing page with color blocking. So here we see some really bold colors and contrasts. Above the fold in the page, they're using this really dark blue, where further down on the page, it's just white. We can see the contrast of those lime green buttons. Um, and then here's an example from user interviews on their qualitative sample size calculator, um, which has to do with some of their typography here. So we can see some fun things they're playing around with really fun typography and some different sizes. So we see this really large, almost like a banner for the title, and then more simplistic typography down below that's smaller. So there's some hierarchy built into this, really clear CTAs with, again, this fun custom font. Um, and they've really done a good job, mixing size and hierarchy and typography to create a fun experience here. White space, State Farm does a great job with this, and also hitting on that, keeping things simple and minimal. We can see a lot of white space that allows us to process just this image that can evoke emotion. And then they have some color in their title, and it's larger, and that echoes their branding colors, which is the red with their logo and their CTA. So that ties it in really nicely. And then they have the smaller text here for the information and really balance out with that white space so that it's not too much of an overwhelming experience when you come onto that page. And then University of Alberta plays around with some really nice typography and size here, as well as color. They are using some color blocking with their branding colors. You can see the typography actually getting incorporated into that graphic design here with the UA. They're using serif fonts for their title, and then a sans serif font for clarity and accessibility within their information here. They're also playing around with, title case up here and within their menu, but then uppercase for that button. So a lot of cool visual things happening there. And then grids and alignment. If you use Figma, auto layout is your absolute best friend. Leverage grids for consistency and alignment in your designs, and follow a grid system. I'm a really big fan of 4-point grids, but you can also use 8-point, etc. Generally, as you go up, you'll notice you won't necessarily just go 4 pixels or 8 pixels. Sometimes you'll jump, from 40 pixel spacing to 80 pixel spacing, depending on what that system is going to be. But this will greatly help to inform and standardize your visual hierarchy. And I really recommend to stay away from like 3-point, 5-point systems like that, mainly because of the way the screens will render, where the screen just doesn't know how to read that pixel, so it will make it kind of fuzzy as it's in between those pixels. So staying with like a 4-point or 8-point grid will help with the sharpness and clarity of your designs and how that will render on a screen. So some screenshots here of grids that I've applied to some projects. So this is a screenshot of just some grid styles. So you can see that they've been established, each of these styles you can set up for your margins, your padding, spacing, all of this. How many columns you want your grids to be. So here you can see there's a 12-column grid that has been applied here, and how that can really help with the layout of these cards on this like FAQ page. And then the elements here on this homepage where the images are fitting within that grid. This can help with responsiveness as your designs move from desktop to tablet to mobile. And then here's an example of some auto layout, which also helps fit into the grid. So here I can see in this cart section where I've highlighted I have 16 pixels of the spacing between these elements at this top level. And as I click in, I can see the individual, 8 pixels between this group and 20 pixels between this. And then this is an example of that auto layout applied to just a little button that I made where I have 40 pixels of padding on the left and on the right, and then 16 pixels of padding on the top and the bottom. And this will really help you be able to create responsive elements by using auto layout along with your grids. Then we have movement. You can create visual interest and really bring your designs to life with animations and movement, and as well as being able to communicate behavior and functionality via interactions. So I'll quickly show you just 2 examples. Sharing this tab. All right, so this is from the University of Oregon, where they've really successfully used movement to showcase student life and their programs, and kind of capture your attention right away above the fold here. And another example from Duolingo, where they have used some really cute animation of their little owl blinking and exploding into all these characters, having this movement that grabs your attention right away. You're like, oh, this is cute. Oh, what's happening? And then I can also see these CTAs highlighting and providing some of that information that, hey, I can click on this. Right. Going back to our slide. All right, and then we have flexibility. So knowing your customers and providing flexibility for those different customer intents that they may have, thinking about their experience and their intent as a customer, as well as the device usage by different user types. What is their intent? What device are they using, and what experience are you creating for them? And from novices to experts, make sure that your product is flexible and efficient for all kinds of users. This is an example from Chase Bank. Here, I can see that I have the option for a personal experience, a business experience, or a commercial experience. And here's what it looks like on a desktop versus a mobile experience here. And when I click into the business, again, the desktop and the mobile experience for that, I can see that compared side by side and seeing how that's a really different experience compared to the personal experience. What's important to those users, personal users versus business users, um, seeing what is marketed to them, what sort of CTAs and abilities they will have on their experience. And then this one is the commercial experience from Chase as well. Before opening up for Q&A, just wanted to also mention the Gestalt principles of design, which is exhaustive. That's its whole own thing. But I will be uploading to the Google Drive a list of resources, which will include the plugins, the accessibility, a bunch of articles to read on visual design and UI design principles, as well as color and typography theory and psychology. So all that will be coming your way. And with that said, would love to open it up for any questions that anyone would like to ask. Also, feel free to pop any questions into the chat if you would prefer to write them there. All right. I'll go ahead and move to the last slide then if there are no questions. Oh, I just heard a little beep.
Thank you, Amy. That was such an informative slides. So many details.
Yeah, definitely. And let me pop into the chat here my LinkedIn in case anyone would like to connect with me on LinkedIn. Feel free to do so. And yeah,
Yeah. Thank you all
thank
for
you so
joining
much
today.
for having me.
Thank you
Yeah,
so much. Now, I would love to see those resources. Honestly, for me, like I need those plugins for the Figma was something I definitely needed to know about.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much.
of course, my pleasure.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
if you
Thank
have
you so
any,
much for having me. And yeah, if anyone has any follow-up questions, feel free to message in the Discord or hit me up on LinkedIn. And totally happy to answer to the best of my ability.
thank you all.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.